This is Good Girl Gone Human, an ongoing conversation that serves the frequency of re-humanization. We believe that in striving towards being good and away from being bad, we can lose touch with our humanity and uniqueness. Our hope is that in expanding our capacity to accept our own humanity, we expand the capacity to accept and hold each other's humanity as well.
We welcome uncertainty and questions with curiosity. This is not a roadmap for the right way to be human. We hold tenderly how seductive and human it is to reach for a formula that will provide a sense of certainty and safety. This is not that place, but rather a place for dropping into our big, messy questions.
This isn't just for the recovering good girls out there, but for every human who desires to peel off the layers that hide the wholeness of who they are.
We want to tell the stories of how messy and complicated and beautiful it is to find ourselves in the aftermath of this shedding. There is space for your story, and we want you to join us on this journey of rehumanization. Hi, Holly.
Hi, Kristina.
Hi, humans. Welcome back. Good to be here together again. How are you doing, Holly?
Pretty good. Yeah, feeling like we're getting the hang of this podcast thing, but also no promises to act like we have the full hang of it.
I know they missed the part where we're dancing and laughing and giggling and all the things that we do to get to this point, but that's just to spare you guys the trauma.
Right.
But it's nice to be together again. I'm really excited about our conversation today. It's one of those things that's been coming up the whole time. And honestly, when you had your big download moment and Google Doc moment, this was something that came out that first night, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about pedestalization today, what it means and how it ties into this whole Good Girl Gone Human thing that we're creating. And I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, same here. I feel like these first episodes are kind of like these big bucket topics that are the very beginnings of longer conversations. And so this one, pedestalization, like you said, I think it's something I've been chewing on for years now. And it's come from a lot of observing my own process of putting people on pedestals. And honestly, the kind of gritty process of you don't really notice you put someone on a pedestal until it's time to rip them off of it. And then we're going to get into that, of that whole process of why we do it, humanize it almost. Like, of course, we see people we admire and we want them to uphold our values or to save us in a way. And so, I'm so excited to get into it. It feels really meaty. That's a word that I just used.
It is, but I think the word, you said you've been chewing on it for a couple of years. For me, the word and thinking about it in this way is a little bit newer, but I now really look at society and I see how we're set up to do this to people, especially more and more today with social media, with the access we feel like we have to people. It feels easier than ever to pedestalize people, to put them on this level above where we are and give them some sort of power and give them some sort of role in our lives. It does feel like society has primed us for this conversation today.
Yeah. I think that as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, so wait, what even is pedestalization? I think looking at the larger society, like you said, kind of helps. Because the most obvious examples, right, are celebrities, politicians, and what does it even mean to put somebody on a pedestal? Like I said, I chew on it a lot. I would like to say I feel like I'm in a process of really still understanding this process. So looking at celebrities or politicians, it's helpful to see, okay, there's something we see in another that we admire or that is in line with our own values, and we perceive them as having more power than us, or maybe they literally do have more power than us. And so now they become like this shining example of something that we really care about. And I'm making it sound like, okay, now you raise this person up and they're like way up high above you, but it's honestly kind of like a sneaky thing that, like I mentioned before, you may not realize that you do that until this person who you're feeling so connected to, for honestly a lot of beautiful reasons, which we can get into, but this person you're feeling so connected to then does something that you don't care for. Maybe they harmed someone, maybe it's as bad as that, or maybe it's like they have a different political belief as you and you're devastated because they were supposed to. What though? Like, what is that part of pedestalization? When you feel let down by someone, like they were supposed to what? Like, why do we do that? And what do you see in that process that's happening?
Well, what this is making me think of, honestly, right away is the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively stuff. It just gave me this moment. I texted you one day when some new news, which might be old news about it, came out of just new allegations and a new lawsuit and the new things. And I told you I was crushed. And I was like, the pedestalization thing is making more sense to me now than it ever did. And here's why. Because Justin Baldoni, probably for the last 7 years, has been like a really big voice in my head. I remember being pregnant with my oldest son, who's now 7, and reading his book, Man Enough, came out. And I thought, oh my goodness, like I'm raising a son. Now I have 2 sons. I've gone back to that book since having another son. I want to understand the struggles of masculinity. I want to understand how culture is harming men. I want to understand all this. And Justin became this voice. Justin, like the first name basis even makes me laugh. Justin became this voice in my head of the guy who's figured it out. I mean, I pedestalized him without any conscious awareness of it. I listened to his podcast. He wrote a book for boys. Boys will be human. It's like boys will be boys. The boys is crossed out and it says human. Boys will be human. So here we are. It just ties in so well. And his podcast was really healing for me. And I pedestalized him and the work he was doing because it gave me hope. So you said earlier, like we pedestalize people because they're going to save us. And I think we think they're going to save us. We want them to save us. When I looked at the work he was doing, it gave me hope that I could raise strong, healthy, emotionally intelligent boys. It gave me hope when I got divorced that I could find another man that was doing this kind of work. His work became so important to me. So when allegations came out against him that he was being harmful to a woman, that feeling of being crushed was that moment of like, oh, you said you don't know if someone's on a pedestal until it's time to rip them off. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I'm not saying that Justin Baldoni is a terrible person. I don't know like how this is all going to play out. And it's a lot of like, he said, she said right now. But I'm like, I need to give him his humanity back. I realized how I dehumanized him and like put him on this place where like he better do no wrong because he's actually holding all the hope I have in the masculine right now.
Wow.
And that was a lot for him to hold and not consent to hold. And in some ways consent to hold because he has this platform and he is publicly doing this work.
He wanted to hold that.
He wanted to hold that. So there is accountability here. And I know that will be threaded through this conversation. But that was a big moment for me. That was a bigger example than other fun examples we have of like putting people on pedestals. And that was the moment where I was like, whoa, I'm having a really big bodily, emotional reaction. I feel so disappointed. I feel so like personally let down,
I'm grateful you shared that and brought that into the conversation because it kind of grounds this big idea of pedestalization. And the fact that you use the word crushed, that's like a big word. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense to me because like as humans, we need hope. Oh my God, we need hope like so badly. And it's also like, this is where, as you're talking, I'm kind of like, this is like tricky, because let's say Justin Baldoni remained a shining example for the rest of forever. It would have been a way you felt hope in this life, and it would have been as simple as you get to keep the hope and you don't have to like confront the messy parts of his humanity or wonder what's true, like all this journey you've been on. And it's like, there are people out there doing that work, and they do give us hope, because it's like this, what I'm chewing on here is like, we do need each other, and we need people that do have power, like celebrities, to use their voices to have podcasts about important things. But back to the actual issue is like, there's something that happened within you that is important, that is the point of our conversation. Because like, by the time our episode comes out, who knows where that trial will be at. So
yeah,
like, for all the listeners, I just want to say, like, you probably have opinions about this, and like, so do I. I'll probably share them in a second, because I have a microphone and you don't. I'm just kidding. But like, it's, the invitation here is to not get caught up in like, is Blake right? Is Justin right? It's, oh my goodness, something big and public and like really high stakes is happening, and Kristina is crushed. Like, but like, I'm not laughing at you. I'm more so like, that's a perfect example of, you've had a lot of experiences with men, and it makes sense that he was this beacon of hope, and like, raising boys is no small task. So having this lighthouse of a person almost, and then we're confronted with his humanity. Once again, we don't know what happened, what didn't happen, who's smearing who's, but like, let's just like even zoom out. Like, anytime there's allegations of any type of abuse, we need to take that seriously. We need to look at like, okay, did I give this person too much of my hope, too much of the power? So yeah, I'm curious to throw it back to you. What was that experience of like being crushed? What I heard is like, he took away your hope. Do you feel like, in your process of processing it, did you feel like you regained it? Have you been feeling really hopeless? Like, what has that, like, okay, now he's on the brink of being canceled, which is not what when we're talking about pedestalization, we want to introduce this idea of de-pedestalizing people.
Which is not a word.
Which is not a word.
We love making up
we
words.
like it.
De-pedestalization.
Yeah, but we wanted to kind of flesh out the idea here that it's not canceling someone. It's not saying belittling them. It's not saying you have no value anymore. Like, even Justin Baldoni's book, like, can it still be helpful? Anyway, I know I asked you a question and then I started talking, but I want to like introduce that, like, okay, you're in a process of de-pedestalizing Justin Baldoni, and at first you were crushed and lost hope. What's the process been like since then?
That's such a good question. I mean, that day, yeah, it was like the shock and the grief and the like, okay, great. Like, there was that low point of like, we are screwed. There is nothing. Like, the hope was kind of like, the wind was out of my sails. And then as I've sat with it in the days to follow, it has been this process, because we talk about de-pedestalization. Okay, if I give him his humanity back, can I also re-humanize myself in this moment and give myself my power back to say I can still, yes, use the contents of the things that maybe I learned in his book or from his podcast. And his podcast is full of amazing guests who I can also glean wisdom from. But can I also just like leave everybody as human? Can we like be on a more level playing field? And can I guess like, I'm like, keep looking for the good, like not look to one person to be that, and not necessarily like find someone else to pedestalize next, but just like, there are other great examples and things to be hopeful about on this topic of masculinity, for example. And so can I can I look around? Can I see what's actually true? Do I need to be hopeless? Are there people doing the work? What does this look like? How is society moving towards healthier versions of things? I'm kind of sitting with that more, like zooming off of one person. Can I take in more like the collective? Like to humanize all of us. We're all working through this together.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like that. It actually reminded me when you were texting me about it. I think like in the hours that followed, I was chewing on it, and I saw just some Instagram creator, not a famous celebrity movie star, like put out some content, just a video that really impacted me. And it was, I can't remember what he said, but it gave me a similar feeling to what I'm hearing you describe as, oh my goodness, here's a man speaking about masculinity, speaking to men, but also to women. And oh my gosh, that was really helpful. And I had this sense of like, I'm going to tell Kristina, like, there's other men, you know? And
totally.
So it gave me a moment of, okay, but I don't want to be like, okay, so now let's go find all of the Instagram and TikTok creators that are not movie stars and pedestalize them. It's like, maybe it's more that Mr. Rogers thing, like in time of crisis, like look for the helpers is what I think Mr. Rogers' mom told him. So it was like a little mini, this wasn't a crisis, but honestly, when celebrities do fucked up shit, it kind of feels like it creates this wave of crisis. And that is kind of what we're speaking to. And my sense of it was like, or my experience of it was a little bit different than yours. It was more like, will we ever know the truth? Of course, I want to believe like anyone that's saying they were abused, but I just felt so like zoomed out from it. Like, why? Because to call myself out, I was just Googling every detail. And then he hired this lawyer to do what? And then this PR person to do what? And then I was just like 20 minutes go by. Okay, why do these people, not these people, that was a little dehumanizing. These people have my energy. But it's a really good question. And I think it goes back to, there is this sense that, well, in a very literal way, these people have more power than us. Having access to so many resources and having such a big platform, they do have more power, and they should use it responsibly. And I hope they sort this out, and I hope justice is served, whatever that means. But like putting them aside, it's like this deeper process of when we look at people that have a lot of power, the process of pedestalizing them is feeling like we have less. I have less power than you. And I did want to acknowledge they have like so much more money and bigger platforms. So like, I don't want to take away that truth. But what it does for me as an individual is, wait, am I powerless? I'm raising a son as well. Am I screwed now because this famous person let me down? So it's this idea of calling our power back to us, and then an invitation to observe, wait, why do I so quickly look for mouthpieces for my own values?
Yeah, I mean, of course we do, right? Because this goes to so many things, because society is set up where we have these people. I mean, even like politicians you mentioned earlier, it's like they're going to make everything right. And when I outsource that power, now I'm not accountable to the things that are happening in my life, right? I don't have to take responsibility. That's great. That feels really good, to say like, this is your fault. And now who will fix it next, right? And so that's like a big cultural thing. It's also, it's lower level than that, like closer to home than that. I mean, with like leadership at a church, for example. I know we talk about religious spaces a lot, but that's like our context that we know a lot about. So I'm thinking about a pastor, a religious leader, like they are set out to be this example for us. Like I remember being a youth leader, even at a young age, it's like, oh, you're supposed to be like up here. And like the whole thing was posturing to pedestalize people. So it makes so much sense that we would not like want to outsource our power, but that we do it because it gives us a sense of like freedom from the responsibility of like enacting change or speaking up or whatever it is, you know?
Oh, so interesting. Yeah, like, because like you said, we grew up in high control religion. I think what I'm holding in this conversation is like the acknowledgement of harm done, but also our individual responsibility to pick ourselves back up or like be around healthy people and take that radical responsibility for rebuilding. But I'm just thinking about childhood and growing up in religion, and we were literally taught to look for a savior. And that's sitting with me really heavy right now if we connect it to like whatever, like even like you said, politics, but it also relates to Justin Baldoni, is we're conditioned to look outside of ourselves for someone to save us. We're conditioned to, you are such a dirty rag, a dirty menstrual rag to be specific, the Bible says, that you need to be saved from your sins. And I like, you know, I don't want to like beat up Christianity, but like I do want to be brave in saying that harmed me to have to view myself as I'm scary. I can't be trusted. I'm so full of sin. I need something outside of me to make me clean. And so of course, like if we look at, okay, that's like our micro experience. And then like you look at the larger context that we're in, which is America. And America is extremely influenced by religion and specifically Christianity. And there is like, you know, you see this in politics too. Like, I don't have the power. I need you to save me. But I don't know. I guess I just wanted to acknowledge like the harm of telling young people, even like your teacher, like knows more than you, is more than you. You have to do whatever they say. Like basically there's an equivalence of obedience equals goodness. That's my lived experience. So in this good girl gone human conversation, if I put down trying to be good, then I'm all of a sudden responsible for all my choices, because it's not as simple as obey and you will be saved. Obey and the teacher won't get mad, whatever it is. Be a good citizen and then the politicians will do what they promised, whatever. So I guess I really want to sit with that thought of, what do you do now when you realize, oh, there's now this, like when something like Justin Baldoni happens, there's this like big gap where I feel really let down and my values weren't upheld. Am I powerless? Am I hopeless? There's like this fertile like loneliness or like aloneness of like, now I have to figure it out by myself. And in my particular journey, like for me, that was like leaving church and being like, I'm like floating. I don't have a community, I don't have anything. Like, now what? And I think that aloneness is really fertile for like, I have me. I have to go inward, not like I'm alone, hyper independence, reject community, don't rely on anyone. But like at the end of the day, I'm responsible for the power that I hold and the values, upholding the values that I have uniquely. And that allows me to be like, wow, politician or Justin Baldoni or literally whoever, like, you may be really fucked up. We maybe don't know exactly ever what happened, but I've got me. Like, I can hold on to me in the face of this ever-changing humaning.
Yeah, humaning. It was reminding me of the belonging conversation that we have. Like, I belong to me and therefore I can belong in community. And it's a similar thing. Like, I am responsible to me and for me, but not alone, you know, like I still can look to people. Everything is like tricky because there's like duality to everything where I'm like, yes, we don't want to like outsource our power. We don't want to put all this responsibility for change on the other, on somebody else, and dehumanize them in the process. But also, like, of course, we want to have people in our lives that are doing the things that inspire us and excite us, and we can look to those people. And like, there is this fine line with the pedestalizing versus admiring somebody. And like, when do you notice that difference? Like, I kind of go back and forth on some of those where I'm like, yeah, I don't want Justin Baldoni to be the one holding all my hope, but is it okay for people to give me hope? Yes. Is it okay that there are people who have more power, more money, more status, whatever the thing is that makes them more effective in enacting change? Can I champion them to do the work in the community that I want to see? Yes. Like, I think it is important that we have people who are upholding our values that we partner with. I think it's just like doing that inner work, like you said, of noticing how much power am I giving them? Where is this coming from? Am I trying to avoid some sort of responsibility by putting it on someone else? You know?
Yeah. You're right. I think it is a fine line. And that's why I'm really excited that we're unpacking this here. And I can already think of some guests we want to have on that will like put their own spin on this. But I think the fine line is like, it's a really subtle observing of yourself and your inner reactions and emotions. So like, if somebody does something and you feel let down by them, but they were just like expressing their individuality and unique viewpoints, and you feel let down by them, and you think that they should take on your definition of good so that you feel safe, that I think is pedestalization territory. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking of a process where I like held myself in this back in COVID times, where just like literally my view on COVID was one side hates the other side and is afraid of them and vice versa. And that just really sucked because we need each other. And so for me personally, I saw one musician that I'm not like her like biggest fan in the world, but she was talking about COVID in a way and like rewarding people for acting in a certain way. And it just like was the opposite of how I viewed. I'm talking so vague because controversy is scary and I'm just letting myself be human. Also, It doesn't matter. This isn't about the sides. The point is like, I had a choice. Is this like singer who I actually really like blacklisted in my own mind because how dare she speak up for her seeing it the opposite way that I do? That was actually, I remember, a big pedestalization moment for me, because it was like, it probably took 6 months or something. If I saw her song pop up or something, I would feel a little like, why did she like say it that way, reward people like with literal stuff for like joining her. And the way I see it now is like, good for her using her power in the way that she felt convicted to.
Yeah, the things that mattered to her.
Yeah. So that is what I mean by like humanizing. Like, she gets to keep her platform. She doesn't deserve to like not be a singer anymore. Like, whatever.
Yeah. I'm thinking where we're like, okay, what do we do now? And you just touched on some of it. It's like letting these people have their humanity. And so the gauge of like, am I pedestalizing somebody? Do they have the space to be human? So another just pop culture reference, because we're thinking about this on like a society level, which I think is easier to chew on. And we will deepen into like the personal at some point through this podcast. But I'm thinking about Chappell Roan, and like when she did some, you know more about this too, I feel like, but it's like she stepped back and needed to take care of her mental health. And the backlash of that was like, you said, people were saying, like, you asked for this by being like a pop star. If you want to be famous, this is what you need. And she's like, I'm trying to like make it in this business, but you're saying I'm not going to make it because I'm trying to like take care of myself. And the comments that were coming towards her, I'm like, okay, this is like a way to take the temperature of the society, right? Like, do we allow people the gift of their own humanity? It's such an easy way to look. Am I dehumanizing people because I need them to be something for me, you know? And I guess she is like that for some people. She's been a big champion for different groups and people. And so they felt betrayed by her.
Yeah, I think, I'm glad you brought that up because I love talking about this. It's a great example because celebrities and, music is so close to our heart. So I like, it's more fun to talk about musicians. That's easy for us to talk
about. I'm like, let's go here.
Movie stars. I'm like,
or politicians or whatever. We don't care as much about that.
Exactly. But Chappell Roan, like, in addition to like needing to take a break for her mental health, she also like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but like, just had some videos of her talking and saying like, please don't call me by my regular name. Please, like, if you see, like, I want to go to the movies with my friends. Like, don't, like, if I'm off the clock, like, leave me alone. Now, I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing and she didn't actually say that, but that was the heart of it. Like, hey, advocating for her humanity is what I heard. And there's a funny process going on in me. Is like, okay, now I'm pedestalizing her. She's going to help us shift the tides in culture because she's like
advocating,
standing. Yeah. But, people just feeling like I feel like we think of our artists as like something to consume. You got famous, you like have all this power, we love you, like now you are ours to like consume, to eat. And that was what she was pushing back against. And it was hard to see people like literally straight up dehumanize her, like well, why would you want to be famous if it's like, wait a second, I actually like I think fame sounds really scary. I wouldn't want to be famous, but like I know people who like want to be famous. I don't think it's a bad desire, but it's like once you're there, I can only imagine how jarring and scary it is. That's something I remember her saying is I'm the most like blessed or happy I felt in my life and the most scared I've ever felt. And like that's got to be so weird for everybody everywhere to recognize you and want something from you. You cease to be an individual with like rights almost. I don't know if that's too far to say.
I mean,
needs, because like you owe me a picture or you owe me this. And one thing that really stood out to me, I don't know if you saw, there was like a carpool karaoke Christmas special and she was in it. And anyone that's like having fun listening to this conversation, like totally go watch it if like this sparks an interest. But there were so many beautiful moments, just for the sake of time I won't unpack here, but where I was like, she gets it. She was like, had her mom and dad in the car singing her songs with them. Her dad teared up saying, she has helped me learn to love different kinds of people. I think she grew up pretty religious. And so I just was sitting there like with her, like crying because her parents were in the backseat of the car singing her like, it was funny to watch her mom sing the lyric that's like about her mom. My mom's gonna,
that's interesting.
Anyway, just like the religion and like she was just talking about like having these conversations and advocating for people. And she called like the Grammys a popularity contest for the cool kids and that she didn't really care about that. But also, it's probably going to feel good if she wins awards. Like she can. What if
art matters? Like
art matters.
She's allowed to care. And I think I'm going back to thinking about how we grew up. And you're saying like we consume these artists, and also they, at least for us growing up in like Christian culture, these artists were postured as these people to emulate. And there's like a whole. I mean, I had a friend who worked in Christian radio for a long time, and talking about just like the formula behind like that whole industry and how they wanted to make examples for young people to emulate, which isn't like in and of itself, I think, a terrible thing. But it became like, oh, I'm going to look to you and you're going to like help me, save me, be the light, be the example. And then, I remember seeing somebody from one of those bands during like those tours that they would all do, like the Christian music. What was it called? Spirit West
Coast. Oh,
and like I heard that somebody in one of the bands was like smoking a cigarette or something. And like poor little high school Kristina, I was just like, well,
that's it for them.
That's it for them. For me, because I'm looking for people who will do this work for me.
Kristina, I did the same thing. It was like those Christian musicians. That was my life, Christian music.
I know it was.
And it was like,
I've seen the photos, the shirts. Didn't you wear like only band t-shirts?
Only band. I like literally in like junior high and like high school, I went to a private school, so I wore a uniform. But like on Saturday, it was like my 1,000-foot crutch t-shirt, and Sunday it was like my FM Static or my Switchfoot shirt. Like,
oh yeah,
it was, yes. So I remember feeling like, oh, these people figured it out. They're the Christian examples I should follow. And an example that's coming to my mind, which is just like so near and dear to my heart, and I have made content around this, so maybe people are like sick of it, but Jennifer Knapp, the singer Jennifer Knapp, she was popular in the 90s in Christian music, and I loved her. She was my very first favorite, and I won't tell the whole story. You can
read her Substack.
Oh God, I was not going to plug it, but Kristina did. So there we are.
It's so good, but it's such a great story. But anyway, yes.
But the short version is, or like one piece of the story, is she actually was starting to feel pretty uncomfortable with how culty the Christianity around her was, because that wasn't actually her experience of Jesus. The actual culture of the church was starting to feel a little icky. She also has a book if you want to read her book, plug her book. But she was told, like, we want you to be kind of like the poster child for purity culture. We want you to talk about all these things about sex, and like purity culture meaning don't have sex before you're married, and a lot of controlling people's sexuality, which is problematic and a different topic. So I'm like, not going to get into it. But she actually said no. And I didn't know that actually till recently. And I felt very protected by that, which is kind of a nod to, okay, I don't want to pedestalize her, but like also when you have more power than the little teenage girls, like you do have responsibility. Yeah. But she said no. She thought it was like weird. And I'm so grateful she did that. And she ended up coming out as gay and got totally pulverized by the church, and now is doing really awesome things and using her voice in ways that she feels convicted to, and I think she's great. But that's a great example of actually like in high school though, when I found out she was gay, I was crushed because she was supposed to be, you know, rattle off what she was supposed to be for me. And guess what? That version of Jennifer Knapp that was in my head didn't exist.
Right.
Jennifer, the human, I didn't know her. I think that's the point. We don't know Justin Baldoni. Is he like a complete asshole? I don't know.
Jury's out, literally.
Who knows? I don't
care. But like when
honest.
These people carry us, I'm thinking, I know you have other examples too of musicians that you love, but for me, like we love Sleeping at Last. I love Sleeping at Last, and his music, Ryan O'Neal, has like carried me through many iterations and literal births and figurative births and thresholds, and like he's the soundtrack. If I'm going stargazing and looking for meteor showers, which I love to do, like I'm downloading his music and I'm listening to it, and he is important to me. So it's okay for me to like also see that his music matters to me, but can we let the artist just make their art? Can they just have their art, and then can they have their humanity? I don't know, because when I look at culture, and we're part of it too, just this like we see a celebrity out in the wild and it's like, I want to take a picture with you. I want your autograph. There is this like just impulse towards pedestalization that is very cultural, you know?
No, totally. Oh, I love the question. Like, can we just let the artists make their art and then like it not cost them their humanity? And then it's funny you bring up pictures, because I just remember part of my de-pedestalization journey is I have vowed to never take another picture with a famous person or someone I admire again.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did we get there? That's like making vows is like
it's a little
very
intense
thing, but I love it. I live for it. But like, what was that process? What got you to the place where you like felt the need to make a vow not to do that anymore?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the reason why this is such an intensely stated vow is like my favorite thing to do ever was meet people and take pictures with them.
Yeah,
like I have bands, mostly musicians. I have quite the collection. And so all my life, because I went to concerts all my life, and I don't want to say, oh, that was bad. You know, we're trying to not be like good, bad here. But there was like a handful of straws that broke the camel's back. One was like one of like my, you know, you mentioned Sleeping at Last Carrying You. John Foreman is someone who has carried me. And I just think over time, I had so many pictures with him. It was like starting to get embarrassing. And I'm like, why am I waiting in line again? And it was because there was this feeling of like, your songs mean a lot to me and you kind of saved my life. Like there's that savior energy, but like really he was a friend to me when I felt like no one else was. And he was not afraid to talk about death. He was not afraid to doubt in his faith. And I didn't know it was okay to do that until I heard him sing about it in high school. So it's like every time I'd wait in line and then introduce myself and feel so awkward because this is the 6th time I've done this.
Yeah, you've introduced yourself 6th time. He goes, hey, Holly, nice to meet you.
Yeah,
you know?
and I'm like, oh, I'm glad he didn't remember. That'd be more embarrassing. Yeah. But I was just like, there's something about the body language of taking a picture with someone that, like, to actually answer your question, led to me vowing. And it's like, so John Foreman, for example, right, means a lot to me, and I want to tell him that to his face, but it's just one, he's heard it all before. Like the 100 people in line before me just said the
your music
thing.
means so much to me. You saved my life.
Yeah,
and he goes, thank you.
And he goes, thank you. And I'm sure he like loves it, and it like pays the bills. It's great, right? But there's this weird posture of like either getting a signature or like taking a picture. It's like a break of connection, a break of like humanity. That's like a little strong language, but like I was just like, you know what? The next time I ever talk to John Foreman, I want it to be, if it comes up naturally, I could, because I see him, because I don't know, I manifest having him on a podcast. I don't know. Oh, okay. There we go.
John.
You hear that, John? But that I want it to actually be a moment of connection of like, hey, you, John the human or whoever, you made some art that means a lot to me. That's really great. And thanks, bud.
Yeah.
And or not, or like let him be with his family and be like, wow, I secretly know that means a lot to me.
Connection over consumption, like of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and now I'm just like on a roll now with this. You sent me a clip of Harrison Ford.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
This made me so excited because I've been talking about this picture thing. I also had like a really embarrassing story of like seeing Chris Pratt out in the wild. And like, I'm not even that big of a Chris Pratt fan. It's a longer story, but I just like freaked the fuck out and like got a picture with him, and he was trying to be kind of incognito. And I just like, I was like, why did I just go batshit crazy? Like, I love him in Parks and Rec, but like, it was so embarrassing. And my brother that took the picture for me was like, I did not know you were that big of a fan. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Yes. I was like, I'm not that big of a Chris Pratt fan. I mean, he's awesome.
We need the photo.
Okay.
I need to see like, the last photo that you took with a famous person.
Yeah, there you go.
Before the vow.
It's like really funny because it's like I just would stare at this picture and everyone I posted, everyone loved it, and then I'm
big
like,
reactions,
but
lots of likes. What?
Yeah. To consume him? Like, poor guy can't even go out in public.
So Harrison Ford in this clip, that's like, it's the opposite. So this is the story of like Holly seeing Chris Pratt and dehumanizing him in the sense of like, you're trying to just like watch this show and I'm going to like come up and snag a picture and all this stuff. With Harrison Ford, he's talking about the show Shrinking. And Harrison Ford has like notoriously always hated fan photos. I think it's like a bit like I didn't
know that.
Yeah. Like hates taking pictures. He's always been a grump, which I love that he's like, if you don't watch Shrinking, like this is my formal pitch. Like, please watch Shrinking. It's so lovely. And Harrison Ford is just this grumpy little grump in it. And so I love it. But in this clip, he's saying, things are changing and this show is changing things. And somebody came up to me the other day and they said, this show means so much to me. It's like healing, and they kind of like maybe gave him a hug or did something, and they walked away. And he was like, no picture and no picture. And he's like, this is right. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. Appreciate my art. I'm putting words in Harrison Ford's mouth, but appreciate my art and let it be that. Why do you need a picture of me? What are you ever going to do with this picture of me? And so there's this other side of like these celebrities experiencing moments of this rehumanization, and they know what it's like to be dehumanized. Yes. And so
that made me feel really damn good, because I was like, that's what I've been saying, but he does have a little farther reach than me, just a little. I hope that influences people to like, because here's what stuck out to me with that. Harrison Ford got to participate in connection. He was connected with, he wasn't extracted from.
Yeah.
And it meant enough to him to, in an interview, bring it up. Yeah. And it's also a show about like therapy and helping each other. So I was just like feeling all the feels watching this clip of like, he actually got to participate in the sweetness of like how far reaching the show is and how much it means to people, rather than him just being like a product for amusement.
Or a prop. Like you're saying, that body language, turn your body away from me, stand next to me, smile. And then like, I got what I wanted, bye,
Yes,
and kind of walk away. Terrible. Super odd. And so I think like all these examples, seeing it like from both sides as much as we can, from Harrison Ford's perspective, from Holly to Chris Pratt or John Foreman, or
sorry, Chris,
the way I know, sorry. I think it's like, it's helping me to ground into like, okay, there's a little bit of like, no wonder we do this. We don't need to shame ourselves for it. We don't need to, you've shared the story of the friend who was like, I need to stop de-pedestalizing them. And you're like, maybe, or we just notice, like going back to this inner work, going back to being a compassionate observer of our thoughts. Am I pedestalizing someone? Am I dehumanizing somebody? Am I giving away my power? These are just like the kind of things we want to sit with in this conversation of like good girl gone human. If we're trying to rehumanize ourselves, it means we have to like rehumanize other people. And on a society level, if we could do that on this celebrity scale in any way, that's huge, because that's where it's just so easy to see and so obvious,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like more than anything, an invitation to observe, like you said, because we do want to be tender with these conversations and saying, okay, this is our new dogma. We don't want to say that. Our new dogma is to not de-pedestalize and like now be like police towards each other about it. So I love that call to like compassionately observe where you do this with celebrities, because that is an easy place to start. But also dig deeper. We do this with our therapists. We do this with our friends, which is a whole can of worms I'm excited to get into, but not today. But we're going to have to keep unpacking this throughout the podcast and have follow-up episodes on how much deeper and more mundane it gets, than like a blaring news headline about the newest whatever scandal. And so, yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to hear other people's stories too. I'm like, tag us in your celebrity photo.
Oh, that's
I want to see
so
it.
Fun.
I just like, and even just like recognize if you have one, especially where like the posture is like, like you can tell everybody's uncomfortable. I would just love to see that.
Without shame though.
Without shame,
like,
no,
we
like
will
to
all
laugh at ourselves,
together.
to say like, this is something we all do collectively. I love the vow. I love the moment before the vow of just like, I will. And I mean, there are some people that it would be a challenge if you met them to not take a picture with them.
Brandon Flowers.
If Brandon Flowers was at the store, like, how do you not? I don't know. Maybe you don't,
Maybe I'll just like want to stare into his beautiful, beautiful face and be okay not taking a picture.
Maybe. And I think just creep. Like, there is like some gift in being able to laugh at ourselves and not take this whole human experience and experiment so seriously. Like, it's okay to notice when you're doing it and to chuckle and say, all right, redirect, or if you're in a deeper mood, you go, oh, where's that coming from? What am I giving them? But we don't always have to live there either. And so this is just an invitation to think about part of this human life in a new way and see how this dehumanizing stuff really like impacts everybody, you know. Even the rich and famous aren't, you know, if anything, they have it worse, you know.
Yeah.
They're not free from it.
For sure. Yeah. And I love too that we're both on this journey. This is not something that we have mastered at all, but I loved hearing you share those personal examples and getting to share my own stories. And with that, thank you all for listening to us very barely scratch the surface of such a, I guess I'm going to say, meaty topic again. And we're grateful that you're here, and send us your celebrity pics and follow us on all the things if you're not already. And we'd love to remind you as we head out here that you are an absolute badass and the most fragile thing. Treat yourself as both.
See you next week.
Bye.